Moses stands barefoot on the jagged granite of Sinai. The air is thin. It smells faintly of smoke and ozone. Most people read the story of God's glory descending on the tabernacle, and they assume they are reading about a celestial light show, wrapped in the body of a 33-year-old man. Then, a cloud descends. It is not a mist. It is a thick, luminous fog that swallows the summit. A voice thunders from the center of the cloud, vibrating against the stone beneath their feet. "This is my beloved Son, with whom I am well pleased. Listen to him." The disciples do not stand in awe. They do not raise their hands in euphoric worship. They fall flat on their faces. They are terrified. The density of the divine is pressing them into the dust, just like it pressed Ezekiel, just like it broke the neck of Eli. They cannot stand under the weight of it. Jesus steps forward. He reaches out a calloused hand. He touches their trembling shoulders. "Rise," he says, "and have no fear." When they look up, the blinding light is gone. The heavy cloud has lifted. There is only Jesus, looking exactly like the man they walked up the mountain with. The kavod has hidden itself again in human skin. The creator of the universe did not just come to show us his weight. He came to carry it for us. But 2,000 years later, we have forgotten what this weight actually looks like. And in our desperation to feel significant, we have started chasing a phantom. A screen glows in a dark bedroom. A thumb swipes. A metric ticks upward. A dopamine hit registers in the brain. They read about the radiance filling the temple, and they think of a brilliant optical illusion. The cold glass of the phone reflects a carefully curated face. We are a species exhausted by our own image. We have reverted to the classical, pagan definition of DOXA. We are chasing opinion. We are hunting for reputation. We construct platforms. We polish resumes. We curate aesthetics. We build digital empires out of pixels and sound bites. We measure our existence by the roar of an invisible crowd. We want to be seen. We want to be known. We want the light of public approval to shine directly on our faces. But public approval has no mass. It cannot hold you down when the wind blows. When a medical diagnosis arrives in the mail, the applause goes quiet. When a marriage fractures, the metrics do not matter. When the screen finally goes black, you are left sitting in the silence of your own room, and you feel the physical, hollow ache in your chest. You realize you have spent your life accumulating something that weighs absolutely nothing. Fame is not an anchor. It is a vacuum. It demands everything and provides no actual substance in return. The tragedy of the modern human condition is not that we desire glory. God hardwired the human soul to desire glory. But if you look closer at the text, the light is just a side effect. Glory is not a luminescence. It is a mass. The tragedy is that we settle for the fragile, weightless counterfeit. We want the illumination. We refuse the density. We want the crown. We run from the crushing pressure that forms it. We think carrying the kavod of God means living a life of unbroken victory. We think it means standing on a stage with a microphone. We assume the heavy presence of the Creator will make our lives easier, brighter, and more palatable to the culture around us. We treat the presence of God exactly like the Israelites at Aphek as a tool to elevate our own status. But a man who spent his life covered in the dirt of the Roman Empire knew better. He had seen the blinding light on the road to Damascus. He had been thrown into the dust by the sheer gravity of the risen Christ. And when he sat down to write a letter to a struggling church in Corinth, he used the word DOXA to describe something that shatters our modern obsession with comfort. He linked the weight of God to the one thing we spend our entire lives trying to avoid. A man sits in a damp, dimly lit room in Macedonia, favoring bruised ribs as he leans over a wooden table. The air is stagnant, purple scars, the remnants of Roman rods and Judean stones, stretch across his shoulder blades like a crude map of his travels. The real question of this passage isn't how bright the mountain was about to become. It's this: how heavy is the presence that is about to land? He is dictating a letter to the church in Corinth. The The scratch of a reed pen against coarse papyrus echoes in the quiet room. His body is actively breaking down. He is deteriorating under the relentless physical pressure of exposure, imprisonment, and mob violence. But when he describes his agony, he uses a phrase that completely upends the modern human understanding of suffering. In 2 Corinthians chapter 4, verse 17, Paul makes a statement that sounds almost insane to a modern ear. For this light, momentary affliction is preparing for us an eternal weight of glory beyond all comparison. Paul is a scholar who thinks in Hebrew but writes in Greek. When he dictates the word for glory, his scribe writes down DOXA. But Paul is not thinking about the Greco-Roman concept of fleeting reputation. He is thinking about the ancient Hebrew concept of kavod. He is thinking about mass. He is thinking about an undeniable, gravitational substance. So he forcefully welds the two concepts together. He writes the phrase, baros doxas, the weight of glory. The city of Corinth was obsessed with status. It was a wealthy Roman colony built entirely on upward mobility, where citizens fought fiercely for public honor. If you misunderstand this word, you do not just misunderstand an ancient text. You misinterpret the very nature of what God is doing. They wanted the applause. They wanted the visible victory. They wanted a savior who conquered empires. And they wanted a faith that elevated their social standing. Paul, writing with a battered and exhausted body, tells them they are chasing a vapor. Look at the contrast he sets up. He calls his beatings, his shipwrecks, and his starvation light and momentary. He looks at the brutal, bone-crushing toll of his physical life, and he categorizes it as weightless. But when he looks toward the invisible reality of God's presence, he calls it a heavy, eternal substance that is actively being produced by the pain itself. The affliction is not an interruption to the glory. It is the crucible. Paul is making a profound theological claim about the architecture of the human soul. The crushing pressure of living in a broken world does not drive the kavod of God away. It carves out the internal capacity required to hold it. The heavier the external affliction, the deeper the internal foundation must become to support the sheer density of what God is building inside of you. He is telling a group of exhausted, status-obsessed Christians that their pain is not a pointless tragedy. Every ounce of pressure is doing structural work. But if Paul is right, it forces us to face a terrifying realization about what happens when we ask God to move. When He enters a human space, we ask for His glory in our own lives, expecting an emotional high, a floating sensation. We sing the songs on Sunday mornings. We close our eyes. We raise our hands. We ask for the glory to fall on our lives, on our families, on our careers. We ask for the fire to come down. We ask for the presence of God to fill the room. But we do not realize what we are asking for. We are asking for a house made of toothpicks to hold a freight train. When the kavod arrives, it does not hover politely in the corner. It lands. And when a massive, undeniable object lands on a fragile structure, the structure buckles. The floorboards snap. The drywall cracks. The ceiling caves in. We experience this collapse, and we immediately call it a crisis. We spend decades building our own personal DOXA. We build resumes on thin paper. We construct identities out of glass. We desperately want to be seen as significant. So we collect the weightless opinions of strangers to feel heavy. We curate our lives to look pristine from the outside. But paper and glass shatter under gravity. When God actually answers the prayer for His presence, the first thing that happens is a demolition. The career stalls. We want an experience that will lift us above the heavy realities of our pain, our failures, our exhausted minds. The relationship fractures. The public reputation takes a hit. The applause of the crowd goes completely silent. We look at the wreckage of our carefully curated lives and assume God has abandoned us. We assume we are under attack. The breaking of your comfort is not an attack. It is an excavation. God is actively bulldozing the fragile, weightless DOXA of public opinion so He can lay a concrete foundation. He is destroying the papier-mâché platforms we built for ourselves. because they cannot physically support the sheer density of what he intends to place inside of us. You cannot carry an eternal weight on a hollow frame. You ask for peace. He strips away your illusions of control. You ask for influence. He sends you to the back of the line. You ask for his fire. He gives you the searing heat, the smell of ash, the blinding smoke that stings your eyes. He is not punishing you. He is expanding you. The people who carry the heaviest realities of God are rarely the ones fighting for the spotlight. They do not need to. They are the ones with calloused knees. They are the ones with quiet voices. But when the glory of God actually shows up in Scripture, people do not float away in a state of euphoric bliss. They are the ones who have been pressed into the cold dirt of a broken world until every fake, weightless thing was crushed out of them. They have stopped chasing the light. They have learned to hold the mass. But this is where the journey of this ancient word finally turns toward you. Moses stood on a jagged mountain begging for the light, and the sheer mass of the Creator pushed him into the rock. An army marched a gold box into a battlefield to win a war, and the heavy presence abandoned them to their empty hands. The Creator of the cosmos compressed his gravity into human flesh and walked into the neighborhood to breathe the dust. 3 fishermen followed their rabbi to a high summit and fell on their faces under the unshielded radiation of a blinding God. A modern generation chased the hollow phantom of public applause and found themselves starving in the dark. An exhausted apostle sat battered in a Macedonian cell and called his broken ribs the crucible for an eternal weight. The fragile floorboards of a curated life buckle under the pressure, and a concrete foundation is finally laid in the wreckage. Same word, same weight. One undeniable reality. But maybe the part that stays with me most is the hand on the mountain. They fall on their faces. Their knees give out. They are pressed into the dirt by an overwhelming, undeniable substance. Not the blinding light shining from the face of Christ. Not the voice thundering from the center of the thick fog, but the calloused hand reaching down to touch the shoulder of a terrified man pressed into the dirt. The gravity of God bringing Peter to his knees, and the humanity of God telling him to rise. If you are in a season where the pressure feels like it is crushing you, where the scaffolding of your reputation, your career, or your comfort is actively breaking down, do not assume God has left the room. Do not confuse the collapse of your fragile platforms with an attack. The weight you feel is not a punishment. It is an excavation. He is clearing the hollow, weightless things out of your life, so your frame can actually support his presence. If this reframed something for you, subscribe. Leave a comment, even one word helps. Share this with someone who feels like they are collapsing under the pressure of their current season. Pray for us as we keep digging into these ancient texts, and may the God who refuses to let you settle for a weightless existence walk with you. The ancient writers were not describing a balloon that carries you away from your problems. They were describing an anchor, through the demolition and fill the empty space with a glory that will hold you when the wind blows. Below him, a camp of 2 million people waits in the oppressive heat of the desert. To feel the impact of this, you have to step away from the English translations. You have to look at the ancient vocabulary itself, because when you trace this concept from the Hebrew spoken in the desert to the Greek written in the 1st century, the entire picture shifts. The biblical authors are not pointing to a glow you can simply look at with your eyes. They are pointing to a reality that bends the floorboards when it enters the room. We live in a world that defines glory entirely by its surface. If you look up the word in a modern dictionary, you will find definitions rooted completely in human perception. High renown, honor won by notable achievements, magnificence, or great beauty. In our modern vocabulary, glory is something you acquire. It is the flash of a camera bulb. It is the roar of a crowded stadium. It is the pixelated glow of a screen. It is a fragile, manufactured thing that depends entirely on an audience to exist. But ancient languages do not function like modern public relations machines. When the biblical authors set out to describe the presence of God, they were not reaching for a word that meant fame. They were reaching for a word that meant reality. But up here, there is only the cold rock. the whistling wind, and a man pushing his luck. The kind of reality that possesses undeniable gravitational pull. Think about how we experience the physical universe. Light, on its own, does not exist without an origin point. The warmth you feel on your skin on a clear afternoon. The blinding glare that forces you to shield your eyes. The heat that bakes the asphalt beneath your shoes. That light is not just a floating aesthetic. It is the byproduct of a massive, burning star. It is the result of millions of tons of hydrogen fusing together in a violent, physically heavy reality. You cannot have the brilliance without the burden. The light is just the visible evidence that the mass is there. The biblical writers understood this instinctively. When they describe God appearing in a cloud or a pillar of fire, they are not telling you about an optical illusion. They are describing the visible radiation of an invisible weight. God's glory is not an aesthetic he puts on to impress us. It is the sheer density of his existence bleeding into our three-dimensional space. It is the substance of who he is. When that substance enters a room, it does not just illuminate the walls. It rearranges the furniture. It demands a physical, visceral response, because the heaviest object in the room always dictates the orbit of everything else around it. He has already seen the sea split in two. He has already watched bread fall like frost from the sky. And the terrifying thing about this kind of glory is that it can leave. If glory is a substance, it has a location. It has a resting place. And if a people decide they no longer want the weight of that reality, or if they try to manipulate it for their own gain, the substance will lift. The light will go out. Which is exactly what happens in the book of 1 Samuel, on a day when a desperate nation tried to use God's weight as a weapon, only to find their hands completely empty. Dust chokes the air at the battlefield of Aphek. The Israelites are losing. 30,000 soldiers lie dead in the dirt. The smell of iron and blood mixes with the sweat of a panicked army. They need a miracle. They need a weapon. They send for the Ark of the Covenant. The heavy, gold-overlaid box is carried into the camp. The earth shakes with the shouts of the soldiers. They assume they have secured an automatic victory. They treat the presence of God like a lucky rabbit's foot. They are wrong. The Philistines attack. The lines break. The ark is captured. A messenger runs 20 miles to the city of Shiloh. His clothes are torn. Dirt is smeared across his forehead. He finds an old man sitting on a wooden chair by the city gate. He has already heard a voice shatter the silence of the wilderness. But it is not enough. The man's name is Eli. He is the high priest. He is blind. He is 98 years old. The text makes a very specific point to tell us that Eli is physically heavy. The messenger delivers the news. The army is crushed. Your sons are dead. The ark of God is gone. When Eli hears about the ark, he falls backward. The heavy man hits the ground. His neck breaks. He dies. But the tragedy does not stop at the gate. Inside the city, Eli's daughter-in-law is thrown into premature labor. The shock is sudden. The contractions are violent. She is dying on the birthing stool. The midwives try to comfort her. They tell her she has a son. She does not answer. She ignores the cries of the child. With her final breath, she gives the boy a name, Ichabod. The prefix I means no or where. The root word is kavod. Kavod is the Old Testament Hebrew word for glory. She does not name him, the light has faded. She names him, the glory has departed. But to understand her despair, you have to understand the root of kavod. It literally means heavy. He needs something more permanent. He is asking the God who just incinerated an Egyptian empire to pull back the veil. It is connected to the ancient Hebrew word for the liver, which was the heaviest organ in the human body. When you possess kavod, you have substance. You have gravity. You have undeniable significance. When you lose it, you become empty. You become a vapor. Israel thought they were carrying a magic box. They thought they could harness the weight of God to win a border dispute. God is not a tool. He is a sovereign weight. The ark was not a weapon they could wield. It was a presence they failed to honor. They tried to use the kavod, and the kavod left them to their own devices. And for centuries, the people of Israel would wait for that crushing, undeniable substance to return. They waited for the heavy reality of God to come back and anchor their fractured nation. But when it finally arrived, it did not return in a gold box. It showed up in a form nobody was looking for. The detail that changes everything about this search for God's weight is found in the opening lines of a first-century biography. John chapter 1, verse 14. An old man is writing down his memories of the Messiah, pressing ink into rough papyrus. And he makes a staggering claim. And the Word became flesh. He is asking to look directly into the unshielded reality of the Creator. He asks for one more thing. Show me your glory, and dwelt among us. And we have seen his glory. Glory, as of the only Son from the Father, full of grace and truth. The word John uses for glory here is the Greek DOXA. In classical Greek literature, outside of the biblical text, DOXA simply meant opinion or reputation. It comes from the root verb dokeo, which means to think or to suppose. In the Greco-Roman world, your doxa was just what the public thought of you. It was a fragile, weightless thing, completely dependent on the applause of a crowd. If the audience turned against you, your doxa evaporated into thin air. But centuries before John picked up his pen, Jewish scholars translated the Hebrew scriptures into Greek. They needed a Greek word to capture the crushing, undeniable weight of kavod. They chose doxa, and in doing so, they completely hijacked the word. They filled it with the ancient Hebrew understanding of substance, gravity, and the visible radiation of the invisible Creator. If realizing how much depth is hidden just beneath the surface of your English translations makes you want to keep digging, you're exactly who this channel is for. Drop a thought in the comments and hit subscribe. Because every week, we go deeper into the text than you knew was possible. So John looks at Jesus of Nazareth, a carpenter with calloused hands and dirt on his sandals. And he uses this loaded word. When we hear that word today, we immediately picture something specific. We imagine light, we picture a blinding, ethereal brightness, a glowing halo. He is not saying that Jesus had a good reputation. He is saying that the kavod, the heavy reality that broke Eli's neck, the substance that Israel lost at the Battle of Aphek, has finally returned. The sheer gravity of the divine presence has compressed itself into the frame of a Jewish rabbi. It did not return to a gold box hidden behind a thick temple curtain. It walked right into the neighborhood. It breathed the dust of Judea. It sat at wooden tables with tax collectors and felt the cold wind coming off the Sea of Galilee. The glory of God is not an ethereal aura, hovering over a religious painting. It is the sheer substance of the Creator choosing to carry the physical weight of a human body. For 3 years, the disciples walked alongside this heavy reality. They watched him eat. They heard his voice break with sorrow. But the physical flesh of Jesus acted as a veil, concealing the true density of what they were dealing with. Until one afternoon, on a high mountain, the veil briefly slipped. 3 men stumble up the steep, rocky incline of a high mountain. Their legs ache. The air grows thin and cold. Peter, James, and John follow their rabbi to the summit. And as soon as he stops to pray, their bodies give out. They collapse against the dirt. Their eyelids are heavy. They are carrying the natural, exhausting weight of being human. A sunburst breaking through the clouds. Something floating, weightless, and entirely detached from the dirt and the dust of the ground. But when they wake up, the gravity of the mountain has completely changed. Jesus is no longer just a silhouette against the twilight. His face is shining like the sun. His clothes are blazing white, a light so intense, so physically piercing, that it hurts the retinas to look directly at it. This is not a reflection. The light is not coming from the outside in. It is burning from the inside out. The veil of flesh has momentarily pulled back, and the kavod, the heavy, blinding, uncontainable substance of the Creator, is bleeding through the seams of his humanity. For 3 years, they thought they were just walking with a teacher. He was a rabbi who wept at a graveside. He was a carpenter who got dirt under his fingernails. He was a friend who fell asleep in the back of a rocking boat. But on this mountain, the illusion of his ordinary weakness shatters. Suddenly, two figures appear beside him: Moses and Elijah, the lawgiver and the prophet. Hundreds of years earlier, Moses had stood on the jagged granite of Sinai, begging for a glimpse of the glory. He had hidden in the cleft of a rock, because the sheer weight of God's presence would have crushed him. Now, he is standing face to face with the exact same weight.